There it is. Okay. Good evening, everyone. With a quorum of members present and the posted time having arrived, I'll call the Finance Committee for Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 to order. We have a full agenda tonight, so we're going to do our best to get through all of this and stay on track. I think it actually on paper looks like more than it actually, it's not, it looks more complex than it is. So I think we're going to be okay with the council meeting butting up against our meeting at 6:30. The first item on our agenda tonight is the minutes of our previous meeting from 8/22 of 23, copies of which are in the packets. Did anyone note any corrections or revisions they wanted for the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. Motion from Martins, is there a second? Second from Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. Minutes are approved. Item number 2 is discussion and possible action regarding police compression adjustment and permanent correction. And so you'll see you've got a request and some information in your packets from the police department. And I think what they're actually hoping for is maybe a recommendation from us to HR to kind of study this issue and come up with a permanent solution, is kind of where I think we're heading on this. Now, this particular item, you know, we've addressed this in the past a number of different times where when you have the negotiated contract staff that's represented at earning at a certain level, and then you have the non-represented management at a different level, sometimes it's easy to get compression within those pay ranges, and then it's difficult to get people to advance up into management because when they lose that overtime component, the salary and the take-home pay picture is much, much different. So with that item number 2, do we have a presentation? Do we have, let me just switch to the packet. We have our newly minted police chief coming up to the podium to talk with us about that. And we also have the HR director with us as well, so if there's questions for him, we can take this as we go. So good background memo in the packets. I think that was helpful for us to understand where we're starting from. So,
well, full disclosure, that was previous Chief Bliven's gift to the police department upon his departure. So that is his work product, but he really felt that it was important that on his way out, we present this to the council to get changes made because it is a significant challenge for any administration at the police department to deal with, and we deal with it annually or every 18 months or so. As far as a presentation, there isn't much of a presentation. If you look, I think the numbers speak for themselves. If you look at the data and look at where our supervisors compare to their peer supervisors at other agencies, if you look at the Sheriff's Department and Everest Metro in similar positions, and I would simply add that the last time we crunched the data, our officers and staff do 60% more work than their counterparts, calls for service and traffic stops, than their peers, for example, at the Sheriff's Department. And it's always been a struggle, and I've appreciated their work ethic, that they do a fantastic job, even knowing that their peers in the exact same position next door are making significantly more money. The reason this is in front of you is, and I'm a classic example of this, when I got promoted from detective, working Monday through Friday during the days, to second shift and third shift patrol lieutenant, I took a pay cut as a result of the overtime. But the difference in pay was so insignificant, it really had to do with my desire to be a leader. Unfortunately, that's a tough sell today with our staff. When we look at the difference between our detectives and our lieutenants right now, there's really very little, if any, financial reason for them to want to take a promotion and take on that additional responsibility. And then we have those issues, we come to the council makes adjustments for compression, and then we're fixed. And then there's a new union contract, and the union gets their raises, and we end up exactly in the same place. So this is a regular recurring issue. And when we looked at other police departments around the state that had similar policies in place as you see presented in front of you, they never have to go back to their council again because there's a process in place to eliminate compression moving forward. And that is what we are asking you to do.
okay. Are we at a point with this where we need to I guess, review or study it further in the HR committee? Or are we to the point where you're ready for us to make a decision on the implementation? Because it looks like, according to former Chief Bliven's memo, he estimated the implementation cost for 2024, depending on whether it was an internal or external candidate selected as chief. He's got two numbers there. In the situation we're in today, we see that cost would be $48,399. So, I mean, we've got what seems to be firm numbers, but are we ready for that decision at this point, or are you looking for a recommendation from us for further study? Because this looks like it's been well-studied.
I believe this is well-studied, and, where we land on this, I think the numbers you see there are based on the numbers, based on the union contract and the pay for our detectives as of July 1st, 2023. The next union raise goes into effect on December 24th of 2023, because that's the start of the first pay period for 2024. That number goes up. The actual cost, I don't know if do you have that one that you emailed me? I think it's in the 60s with the actual cost. And then as the union contracts adjust, we will, if there's a pay raise twice in a calendar year, then twice we'll sit down with HR and look at whether compression exists. I think there are going to be occasions where compression doesn't exist, and then there are going to be times where it does. And our hope would be that
Your mic's on.
this policy causes that movement.
Okay. And so, okay, and then I guess, committee members, do you have any questions for Chief Barnes or for HR Director Henderson? I guess, Michael?
I don't have a specific question, but I just wanted to make a comment because this issue was discussed very robustly in the August HR committee meeting, and I just pulled up the draft minutes from this month's packet, and I'm surprised this didn't make it into our finance packet because there's about 2 pages of notes here, and about this issue, and the end result, I think through the discussion, is that the 5% was a good landing place. The issue that the HR committee had was how the Gallagher wage study that had not yet been released, but was anticipated to be released at that time, how that would affect this 5%. But I don't think, but the Gallagher study is on non-represented employees, and this would be tied to the wages for our in the police department to scale their non-represented with their represented staff. So, long story short, the motion passed 5-0. McElhaney said that she would like to add an amendment that is looked at every year for compression, seconded by Gisselman. Then it was passed. So
Okay, so the recommendation coming from there is that we move this along. I mean,
move this along with annual review.
okay, yeah, I wish that those were in the packet as well, because I was trying to put my finger on, as I read it, what point in the process we're at. Are we asking them to study, or have they studied? And
Yeah.
it seemed like we had enough information here that someone has done the background work,
I think we're in the money part now.
Okay. And knowing where we're at with the implementation cost for 2024, given that they've selected an internal candidate for chief, there was a variable there in the memo that is now no longer an open question. So, I mean, do you guys have any additional questions or comments, or do you feel comfortable in moving this ahead? I would take a motion to approve if one exists. Go ahead, Doug.
I have a question. So you mentioned overtime. So if somebody's aggressively pursuing overtime, are you using that as a basis to drive the bottom number on the say the lieutenant scale or any of these scales?
No, I think it's important for this committee to understand that the lieutenants are eligible for overtime. Captains, the deputy chief, and the chief, we get to work as much overtime as we want because there is no additional compensation. And everything you see is based on the hourly wage. So the lieutenant starting wage is 5% above the detective hourly wage. Our lieutenants have very little ability to drive their own overtime. The grant-funded overtime and overtimes that exist are based on if no union members select to work that overtime, then it's available to our lieutenants. But our lieutenants make significantly less hours of overtime than our officers and detectives do. I think just another piece of information, because Mr. Martin's discussed it, that, and I can let James Henderson speak to this, but Gallagher did weigh in on this, and they saw this as a reasonable solution to address compression and prevent it from occurring in the future.
Sure. James, did you have some comments for us from the committee?
Yeah, it's really just to echo what Matt said earlier. I did run this by Gallagher, and he said that he felt it was very reasonable because we're looking at a total of, I think, 16 people in the command staff. But I think it's really important to kind of understand how we got here. Even though no one's asking me, I guess I'll kind of say anyway. But the way that we got here is that as the union has negotiated their wages, say they would get 4 to 6%, because I think that's what they got on the last. Now, my understanding is in the past, we've not always gotten COLAs. So now, like last year, we got a 3% COLA, so we were okay. You had a 3% COLA plus the 1.5% step. So you were okay. But on the years that we don't get a COLA, then they're getting a 4 to 6% jump, while management only got a 1.5% jump. And it doesn't take very long for them to catch up with you. And just to give you an example, right now the detectives, and on the end of June, the detectives will be at $84,760 a year. And assuming 4%, which is pretty conservative for the first contract, they would be at $88,000.
Wow.
The maximum salary for a lieutenant is $89,000. So if we did nothing, this very next union negotiation, the detectives will have caught up with the lieutenants. So basically, I think what I want to get out of this is that we look at this thing yearly, every 6 months or a year, however, whatever the council would suggest, and revisit this and not wait for 5 years till we do a wage study and then see that we're behind. Because I think if we stay on it and if we look at it and make adjustments or not make adjustments, I think we'll be in a lot better shape than just waiting till someone gets unhappy and then we've got to jump and do something.
It's a way smaller pill if we look at it more often. I mean, it just, because if you get too far behind, then you are having to phase in the catch-up, and that's even worse. So
Exactly.
I can certainly see that this looks like a lasting solution. That's the one thing we want, is to not be back in the same boat in a year or 2 years or 3 years, because all of the adjustments that we've made in the past to adjust compression in a number of departments really tend to be reactionary, and there's like stopgap measures. So you make it okay for this year, and then in 3 years, you're back to the point where no one wants to get promoted anymore because they're back to the same pool. So this does make some sense. Does anyone else have any questions for James?
And the one thing else I wanted to add is we wanted to be as inclusive as possible when it comes to looking at this. This is not going to be just the HR director and the police chief saying, hey, we don't mind including people from whether it be the finance committee or the HR committee or whatever, because we want to be as transparent as possible to make sure that it doesn't look like that we're stacking raises or stacking benefits or whatever the case may be, because we want to get input from others to make sure that this is fair and equitable for everyone.
Sure, that makes some sense. Do we have a motion to approve and move this item forward? A motion from Lukens. Is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Item number 3 is discussion and possible action regarding sole source request for the purchase or lease of 20 automated license plate reading cameras from Flock Safety. You'll recall a little bit ago, we approved a request to test and install Flock Safety cameras, traffic cameras basically, to see what measure of success they would have, because they were being used in other parts of the state successfully. It looks like from the materials in the packet that we've had some really good success with using those systems. And then maybe looking at an expansion of that system, and maybe it looks like ordering them a little bit early to save some money. I guess, Chief Barnes, do you have any comments on this item at all?
I'd invite Captain Graham to come up.
Okay.
This project.
We will welcome Captain Graham to come up. I like the anecdotal list of successes that you've seen from this already because it's inspiring.
And those are the things I probably want to highlight most. You know, in my 15 years of experience, I'm exposed to a variety of different technology through email. And flock safety is one of those things that really stands out to me and is a game changer. Also a force multiplier in the way in which we are able to police here in the city of Wausau. So if you do recall, I'm not going to belabor with a long presentation because I've been here twice as part of CIP, and then in the fall you authorized a sole source approval for the purchase, or actually it's a lease, of 20 cameras. But we are coming to the conclusion of that lease, and we have been informed that beginning January 1st of '24, the price is going to go up $500 from $2,500 per camera per year to $3,000 per camera per year. So by entering into a contract in December and paying in January with 2024 budget dollars, we would be able to save the city about $50,000 over the life of that 5-year term. I've given you 5 kind of success stories that illustrate how flock is being used, and I just want to touch on a couple of them. And the first one there is a man that we arrested for lewd and lascivious behavior. On the west side of town, there was a business, and a person was going through the drive-through of that business and decided to expose himself to the person, to the employee in that business. We were not provided a great description. We had sort of a basic one, no license plate on that vehicle, but there were some unique markers on that vehicle, which included some bumper stickers and stickers on the window. What's wonderful about flock safety is that we are able to, without a license plate, search that vehicle by what they call vehicle fingerprint. So we can put in a make, a model, a color, and then things like bumper stickers or window stickers. And we went from really no suspect to a suspect very quickly. And within a matter of days, we were able to locate and arrest that male. Another success story, just as an example, is a man that we arrested on drug charges after fleeing the scene of a crash. A local business a person was driving a business vehicle, and a person pulled out in front of them, made an improper left-hand turn, and then fled the scene of that crash. They had very basic information to provide us, no license plate. However, we were able to put in that a description of that vehicle along the route of travel and came upon what we thought was the suspect vehicle. We put out a be on the lookout for that vehicle, and literally within just a couple hours, an officer located that vehicle in downtown Wausau. It was unoccupied at the time. We waited for the owner to return, and we made that arrest, held that person accountable for the hit and run. Obviously, the local business was very pleased. But in addition to that, a canine free air sniff of that vehicle produced 50 grams of methamphetamine, which we were able to recover as well. Another case was a sex offender. An agent called me. We had a high-risk sex offender who allowed his GPS to die. And I was able to put an associated vehicle into flock and was able to see that, yes, there's been activity in the city of Wausau. And literally that same day, we were able to get a hit on that vehicle and were able to arrest that sex offender. On a domestic offense, we had a woman report pretty significant stalking behavior, and we had probable cause to arrest that person, but we were unable to locate them. We knew a vehicle that was registered to that party, and so we were able to add that vehicle to our hot list. And literally, we were able to make a same-day arrest. And if you can imagine, if you're the victim of domestic violence, and in this case it was pretty significant, and you have no idea where that offender is, knowing that we have 20 cameras throughout the city that are running license plates would bring a lot of comfort to that victim, and we were able to deliver safety to that woman that particular day. And we've had a lot of stolen vehicles recovered, and we are able to do that sometimes very efficiently. For example, in Marshfield, they reported a vehicle stolen from their jurisdiction. They passed that information along to our officers. They ran that plate in flock, determined, yep, that vehicle is in the city of Wausau, and I think within 2 hours, we were able to locate that vehicle and arrest that party without incident. So that is really just a few examples of probably a few dozen successes that we've had over the 6 months or so that we've been fully operational with our cameras. And what we have learned over these 6 months is this is not good technology. This is great technology. And other communities in the state are seeing that. In that there are more than 100 communities right now in the state of Wisconsin, let alone you could look at the nation as well, that are currently partnering with Flock for this technology. In fact, I went to Florida in the spring for vacation, and we went to Canaveral National Seashore, and I got off the interstate, and there was a Flock camera. So just know that it's not only being used here, but across Wisconsin and across the nation, and it's been great so far. So my recommendation is to continue to support this initiative.
Nice. And I think that just by entering it into the contract a little early, the savings is robust. I mean, that's certainly something that we want people on the lookout for, too, and thank you for finding that for us.
You're welcome.
Committee members, any questions about this item? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
I just, because this is always a concern, is what is the threshold for this? The other day, we had somebody illegally dumping in some parks. Are we going to that level of crime? Or are we looking at felonies? Where is the threshold for enacting this?
Yes, it could be used for an ordinance violation. Obviously, we have a pretty stringent policy on proper use of it. In addition to that, there's an audit that I will do once every year to make sure that it's being properly used. But it could be used to enforce an ordinance violation. It could be used for misdemeanor or felony offense, all of the above.
Do we have a motion to approve? Sarah?
I just had a question too, about the 5-year contract. So will this be built into the police budget then because originally it was from ARPA funds, right?
Yes, this would be a cost to continue added to our 2024 budget.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll see that in our series of workshops in October as well. Do we have a motion to approve? Oh, go ahead, Marianne.
So it would be added to the budget without it being considered a supplemental request?
Right,
if
because
you
it's
approve it
already
tonight.
activity
Yes.
that's happening. So cost
Okay.
to continue, we don't score those like supplements, like new spending.
Right, I
Right,
just wanted to clarify.
right. Go ahead, Doug. Is that a motion?
I would move to approve as written.
Okay, motion from Denny, is there a second? Second from Martins. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed? None are opposed, that item carries. Thank you. Item number 4 brings us to discussion and possible action on approving a budget modification for the Riverside Park Soil Remediation Project. And we'll bring up the Public Works Director to talk to us about that. You can see from the memo in your packet, it looks like they're looking for just over $17,000. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Good evening. Yeah, so the majority of the work out at Riverside Park is complete. We did remove additional soils and was estimated initially, and that's what the additional construction costs are for the little over $10,000. And then we had, after our verification sampling down at the base of the hill, we had one location that had what they called interference, was flagged. So the limit was 164 parts per trillion. That test came in at 170, but the lab couldn't verify it because there was interference with other things in the lab. So it was 2 to 3 inches below surface. It's easily accessible. So rather than retesting and potentially having that, we thought maybe we would remove about another 1 to 2 cubic yards of soil and then retest there. So that's really just a few wheelbarrows of dirt. We'll do some additional verification testing, and then submit our final report to the DNR for closure.
Okay. Anyone have questions on that item? If not, is there a motion to, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
So then this will come out of the environmental fund that Holte.
Yes, Holt Krause.
So how much will be left in that? Just, do you know?
I don't.
Okay.
We just went over it at my PowerPoint at the last meeting, but I can,
We'll still
definitely
have-
declining, obviously, because there's
Yeah.
no new source of revenues, but I don't know how much would be in that fund afterwards.
And just as a question for that, because I know it doesn't have any additional, it doesn't have revenue going
Right.
into it. like, when it's gone, but can we ever put money back in, or that wouldn't be necessary?
Sure, you could.
Okay.
You could choose to budget, every year for funds. That's what you'll have to do once the fund is depleted, is because we have ongoing expenses, so you'll have to fund it then.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's much like we fund contingency or anything else. We could opt to put surplus into it or whatever, but we'd
Yes.
have to find a way to recapitalize that fund. Yes, so, okay. So do we have a motion then? Do we have a motion in a second? We did.
No.
Or, okay, so we need a motion then on this item. Motion from Watson. Is there a second? Second from Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed. That item carries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5 is a long one, so bear with me. Discussion and possible action on approving accepted offers for the following parcels in the Stewart Avenue, South 72nd Avenue to South 48th Avenue Street Project. Parcel 6, 7100 Stewart Avenue, new highway right-of-way fee, permanent limited easement, temporary limited easement. Parcel 8, 6701 Stewart Avenue, new highway right-of-way fee, temporary limited easement. Parcel 9, 6815 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement. Parcel 14, 505 South 68th Avenue, new highway right-of-way fee, temporary limited easement. Parcel 18, 5601 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement and landscaping. Parcel 19, 5801 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement. Parcel 28, 5211 Stewart Avenue, new highway right-of-way fee, temporary easement, and landscaping. Parcel 29, 5213 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement. Parcel 32, 5307 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement. Parcel 33, 5401 Stewart Avenue, landscaping. Parcel 34, 5407 Stewart Avenue, a temporary limited easement. Parcel 37, 5503, 5509, and 5511 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement commercial, temporary limited easement residential, and landscaping. Parcel 38 at 5512 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement. Parcel 39 at 5504 Stewart Avenue, a temporary limited easement, and Parcel 51 at 4901 Stewart Avenue, a temporary limited easement. And so you'll recall when we have these construction projects, this one we're completing in connection with DOT, there always is these little easements and things that are worked out along the road corridor with the property owner for temporary access to boulevards and some restoration of their, yard if it's been impacted by the project. But these all have been, it seems, accepted by the owners. And so all they need for us is a blessing to move them forward, and then they can proceed with them as part of the project. Does anyone have any questions about these? These are pretty standard. Is there a motion to approve them all as a batch? Motion from Watson. Is there a second? Second from Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. So items 6, 7, and 8, we have posted for open and closed session. We also have item 10, which was added by addendum. Item number 10 needs action tonight before the council meeting. So I guess I'll ask you guys, are you okay with taking care of item 10 quick so it's done in case closed session goes longer than we expect? Okay, so item number 10, we'll shift the order a little bit, is discussion and possible action regarding a grant application for a cop house grant. And so we'll bring back Chief Barnes to talk to us about this project.
Sure.
Welcome.
Thank you for the adjustment. I'll try and be super brief. We have been working on, and we're invited to apply for a grant that would allow us to renovate, purchase, or build a house. It's a cop's house. It would be utilized by officers and community partners in a neighborhood where that would benefit that neighborhood. We located a city lot, and we worked with the state, and we used one grant that was accepted, which was for planning, which included the design of a home. And when the price for construction of that home came in, it was rather shocking. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a 2-car attached garage. You can trust me that it did not include stone countertops or custom cabinetry. and the price came in at $550,000.
Yeah.
And that's without, that is without any of the refrigerators or appliances or anything that go with it, including furnishing the home. And that shocked us. The state is willing to accept a grant from us for $500,000, but that doesn't take into account the cost of doing the yard and maintaining the home and paying the annual cost of upkeep that goes with any home, whether it's a family living there or used as a cop house. And I've had conversations with Mary Ann where we look at the budget for this year and we talk about priorities. And you will see that we are asking for some additional dollars in our budget. And there are other things we're going to fund in different ways, which instead of being CIP, we're looking to bring to our budget. And those are more important to us than a cop house. So when we discuss that, it's still a good idea. It's just now's not the time. And so our recommendation is to not apply for that grant. But it is something we've come to the council with before, and we've come to this committee to discuss. And it didn't seem appropriate to either Mary Ann or myself that we make an independent decision not to follow through with this grant without at least explaining that to this committee, to see what your thoughts on that are, or what your direction is.
Does the grant require that the home be new construction?
No.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess that's a question that I would have is, is there an option to renovate something that's already there at a lower cost than a total new build? I think that's, the value of the facility is obvious when you read about the impact that these have. But, and the other question is will the opportunity for the grant come around again?
I believe this grant will come around again.
Okay.
It's a successful grant. We could have gone down the path of purchasing the home and making repairs and renovating it. We didn't. We opted for utilizing a city lot that had an open city lot that's slated to be a park. We felt like it was a good marriage in the 700 block of Jackson Street, good target neighborhood. The grant's due Friday, and it required, that was what the initial grant was for, is for the planning and location of a home. So that ship has kind of left the dock already. We wouldn't be able to shift and look for a home in a different neighborhood to purchase and renovate at this point. But I think it's still something we're interested in, and we'll look for the next time around.
I think that would be helpful, and I think that, depending on how things go economically, if there is some cool down in the cost of construction and materials, maybe not completely, but I think that right now we're still operating in an inflated environment where the cost per square foot to build anything is way, way up. So, whether that continues or not, we don't know, but, I think as long as this opportunity isn't lost forever, because I would like us to still keep one eye on this opportunity, because I think it could be very impactful in the area where it sits. So I guess if we don't need to vote to accept grant dollars, do you want us to vote on this one to deny the application, or do we just agree by consensus that we're going to look at this in the future?
I mean, through my lens, this is us trying to be as transparent with our decision-making. And if I don't need the council or the committee to make a decision on this. I didn't want you to be like, hey, what happened with that? And well, Mary Ann and I decided, since it had come to you already, it seemed appropriate to do this. So
Okay.
unless there's an objection, we will be passing on the grant opportunity and not submitting.
Okay. Committee members, are we agreed as a group that we want to talk about this in the future, but maybe not right now? Is that, I think heads are nodding? Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
So we will then recognize publicly that for now, we'll take a pass on the Cop House grant and look forward to the future and hopefully be able to pull something together later.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So items 6, 7, and 8, as I said, we have them posted for closed session. What I'll do is I'll take them first and ask if we have any open session material for those items. If we don't, then we'll need some volunteers to read some closed session language for us. So item 6 is discussion and possible action on approving counteroffers for the following parcels in the Stewart Avenue, South 72nd Avenue to South 48th Avenue Street project. Those are for parcel 31 at 5301 Stewart Avenue for a temporary limited easement, and parcel 49 at 4905 Stewart Avenue for a new highway right-of-way fee and a temporary limited easement. So related to item 5, but these will require us to approve some back and forth with people. So anything for open session on this item before we get to closed? There is not, okay? Item 7, discussion and possible action on approving an offer to purchase the property 1100 West Street for the purpose of construction of a fleet maintenance facility. Do we have any open session material for this item? None, okay? And item 8 is discussion and possible action to authorize an offer to purchase 811 to 815 Grand Avenue and a related budget mod. Any open session material for that? Looks like we do not. Okay, then would someone or a couple of you volunteer to read some closed session language, 6A, 7A, and 8A? And we'll take them all together in closed session, and if we have any of them to act upon after, we'll come out and take that action before council. Michael, go ahead.
I'll do the first
Start us
one.
off with 6A?
Yeah.
Okay,
See, I make a motion, we go into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, paragraph 1, sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session regarding approving counter offers for the following parcels in the Stewart Avenue, South 72nd Avenue to South 48th Avenue Street project. Parcel 31, 5301 Stewart Avenue, temporary limited easement, and parcel 4905 Stewart Avenue, new highway right-of-way fee, temporary limited easement.
okay. Do we have a second for that? Second from Watson? We'll take a roll call vote for closed session. Watson?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Martins?
Aye.
Lukens?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. Would someone like to read 7? Sarah?
It's short.
I was going to say, you picked the short one. Good plan.
I'd move to go to closed session pursuant to section 19.85, paragraph 1, sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session regarding approving an offer for purchasing 1100 West Street.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion? Second by Martins. We'll do a roll call for that as well. Denny?
Aye.
Martins?
Aye.
Lukens?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. Item 8A. Carol?
I move that we go into closed session pursuant to 19.85, paragraph 1, sub E of the Wisconsin statutes for deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session relating to authorization of staff to negotiate an offer to purchase of 811 and 815 Grand Avenue and related budget modification.
Okay. Is there a second for 8A? Second by Watson. Roll call vote. Lukens?
Aye.
Martins?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Watson?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. We'll adjourn to the Maple Room to discuss all three, and then we'll reconvene in open session if there's action to take. If we run low on time with the council meeting coming at 6:30, we will hold item 9 for our next meeting. So thank you, everyone, and if the relevant staff working those 3 items will join us in the Maple Room, thank you.